recipes to share. So many cooks in the kitchen with meals for you to prepare. We've got fruits and grains, veggies and beans, more healthy food than you've ever seen. So many cooks in the kitchen, plant-based meals to prepare. So many cooks in the kitchen with ideas we're happy to share.
Hello and welcome to our March show of So Many Cooks in the Kitchen. Our show is called So Many Egg Alternatives. My name is Dilip Barman in Durham, North Carolina, and I'm one of the cooks in the kitchen. We established this program about 2.5 years ago, and every month we meet and we go kitchen to kitchen sharing healthy, vegan, whole food, plant-based recipes with limited fat. We're all Food for Life instructors. Food for Life is a nutrition education program of the Physicians Committee. We teach classes to keep you healthy, and if you or somebody you know has situations like cancer or diabetes, high blood pressure, we have classes to help with that. So today we're talking about egg alternatives, and I know eggs have been in the news. People are complaining about the price of eggs. I don't use any eggs, so I'm actually not aware of how much they cost. You can eat perfectly well without eggs, and there's good reasons to do that. Eggs are very high in fat and cholesterol, and they may cause inflammation. On the other hand, soy, tofu, is helpful for bone health, cholesterol reduction, heart health, and may reduce the risk of several kinds of cancer. Soy is a complete protein. It has all of the essential amino acids we need, and it's a good source of vitamins A and B, calcium, iron, zinc, potassium, and manganese. And it tastes good. Some people say that tofu is kind of bland, but when you cook with it, it picks up the flavors of what you're cooking with. So let's get started. I made a mistake. I'm not cooking at home. I'm cooking at a community center where I do a lot of my classes. And I forgot one thing. I forgot a wonderful pan, which is a high quality stainless pan. So I'm going to use what the center has, which is a good pan. But you want to have a high quality stainless, and this is a decent quality one. But I'm going to face a little bit of sticking. And maybe it's just as well, because some of you at home are probably cooking along with us or cooking after the fact and saying, I don't have Dilip's pan. What do I do at home? So maybe, what's the word when something bad happens but it's good? So maybe that's what's happening. So I'm using not the pan that I would like. I'm going to start by turning my pan on, and when you're cooking without oil, you want to keep your pan to a medium to low. That's one of the tricks from keeping things from sticking. And because I don't have my pan, I'm going to start using a little bit of water. Okay, I'm going to start with putting onions and garlic, and all the recipes and the measurements are in our recipe document. So in goes the onions and garlic. Some people, when they cook with onions and garlic, they separate them, but I'm a lazy cook, and I see no reason to do that, so I put them both in. So there go the onions and garlic. And if it were my pan, I would get no sticking. If I start getting a little bit of sticking, I'm ready to add a little bit of water. Okay, so I'm going to let the onions cook just a little bit, not for very long. And then I'm going to be adding the tofu, and what I did with the tofu is I bought either extra firm or firm. This is actually firm tofu. And this is water-packed tofu. So I drained the water, and I squeezed the tofu with my hands a number of times, and I let it sit. Purists will actually put some weight on the tofu and let it sit for an hour or two. I don't bother. So I pressed as much water out as I could, and then I chopped it fairly fine. If you want, you can use a potato masher to really smash the tofu down. My daughter likes to do that, and she's one of the kids in the kitchen. So when she cooks, she likes to actually smush the tofu down. She loves scrambled tofu, as do I. Okay, so the onions, you want to cook till you smell some of the fragrance. And I hear a sizzle, and I'm smelling some of the onion. I use red onion. My favorite onion is the Maui onion, and I get that when I go to Hawaii, I haven't gone to Hawaii in a long time. But I like Walla Walla onions for our friends on the West Coast, and on the East Coast, Vidalia. So I actually like the flavor of Vidalia better than red, but I chose the red for the color, because part of your food is the aesthetic. So I'm going to put in the tofu. Okay, and there goes the tofu. Okay, And I'm going to also add I just want to make sure I'm following the recipe that I published for you. At home, I just kind of mix and match, but according to the recipe I documented, we're going to add some bell pepper. And what I did is I took half a green bell pepper, half a red bell pepper, and I chopped it. I'm going to put that in. Now, the way you chop it is up to you. If you want it fine, that's cool. If you want it thick, that's fine. I did these to maybe 3/8 of an inch. And you can see what's going on here. I don't know if you can see the pan, but there's some pretty colors. So the choosing the red and green is really just for the colors. You can put a yellow bell pepper in too. Although I wouldn't pick yellow because we're going to be adding some turmeric to give a yellowish color. So let's use the red and green, okay? And I'm also going to put some broccoli in. For some reason lately, at least in North Carolina, we're getting particularly sweet and delicious broccoli. So here goes the broccoli, okay? And all the measurements are in your recipe document. So this is looking exciting so far. Usually I like to add turmeric if I add some water a little bit later in the cooking, but I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of turmeric now. Turmeric raw has a bitter flavor, so I wanted to cook a bit. So I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of turmeric. Now the turmeric is a great anti-inflammatory, has lots of wonderful properties, but the other property is it makes your scrambled tofu yellowish. So your friends who are eating eggs, it might resemble eggs for them. So that's the other nice benefit of the turmeric. Okay? You want to be careful not to get turmeric on yourself because it stains. Okay, and as I mix it in, we get a little bit of the color. Okay, I'm going to cook it down a little bit, and the next ingredient I'm going to actually add is some mushrooms. Okay, and you can see I'm going to be adding more turmeric. It still isn't very deep in color. One thing I'm not adding yet is salt. Salt is generally good to add late in the cook cycle. Salt can scratch pans, so especially when you're doing some mixing, I would wait on the salt. And by the way, the turmeric is turning a nice yellow, the tofu a nice yellow. I'm going to still add some more turmeric, but that's appealing. You can add black pepper if you want now, but that I usually add at the end. Something about salt and pepper together. Okay. You can add chives. Chives go great with this too. I'm going to add the mushroom. Okay, here goes the mushroom. Now my pan is much broader, so the mushroom would have more pan contact. So the nice thing about cooking is you can improvise, and usually if you have a decent recipe and are pretty comfortable in the kitchen, things come out well even if they're not under perfect conditions. To me, this pan is a little bit too small. I'd like the ingredients spread out more and more in contact with the heat. But I'll make it work, and I'm happy that nothing is sticking so far. Before I started cooking today, I did a quick test, and with just the tofu, I was getting some sticking. So what I had handy is some water, and I'll try not to use it. The advantage of water is it keeps the sticking down. The disadvantage is some of the water-soluble vitamins evaporate. So I'll try not to use it if I don't have to. I also have some coconut aminos, which I could use. So I'm going to let that cook for a minute, and I've got to brag about something whilst cooking. Is those of you who've been watching our show for a while know, what does February mean to you? We're a little bit late, but look what is now in season. This is called Triple Cross Tangerine, and this goes great with scrambled tofu. This is my favorite citrus, and it comes from California. So I'm just demonstrating scrambled tofu, but at home, this might be part of your breakfast. Have some tangerine with that. Have some whole grain toast. I don't like onions and garlic with breakfast, so if you're making this for breakfast, for me, I would leave out the onions and garlic. I know other people, Cody, for example, she likes scrambled tofu and she puts onions and garlic. Her whole family loves onions and garlic. For me, it's heavy, so if I were doing this for breakfast, I would leave that out. So at this point, the dish is pretty much done. You would cook it until you're happy with the mushrooms. The mushrooms are still kind of raw, but for interest of time, I'm not going to cook it the whole time. But now I'm going to start adding some more seasoning. I kind of like the yellow, but I'm going to amplify it a little bit. So I'm going to put a little bit more turmeric. And in spite of what I said about water and about the water-soluble vitamins, I'm going to add just a little bit of water to get the tofu mixed in nicely. The turmeric mixed in nicely. I'm going to just put a little bit of water. Okay. Oh, that's looking good. So some of your friends who eat scrambled eggs may find this looks very similar to what they're used to eating. And if not, have them cross their eyes, and then they'll say, it looks just like scrambled tofu. So that's almost ready to serve. As I said, at home, I'd cook it for a little bit longer. Chives go great with this. I know we cook, PCRM also has a scrambled tofu recipe, which is similar. They use some other spices. We use some other spices in our classes. I think we use cumin when I teach this. I don't like cumin in my scrambled tofu. I don't think it goes so well with some of these other vegetables. But if you like cumin, feel free to use that. So yeah, we do have a very nice scrambled tofu. Recipes are reasonably common. This is the way I like to do it. Towards the end of cooking, I'm going to add some frozen peas. I like the peas to still be fairly firm, so I like to use frozen peas, and I like to cook it just briefly. I don't want to serve the peas frozen, but I also don't want them to be, hot or cooked way down. And just look at the nutrition powerhouse we're serving. No added fat. Of course, the tofu has some fat in it. And you don't have to add the peas. Some people love peas. My daughter loves peas. You're getting so much nutrition from the legumes, the tofu. Adding some more legume, adding peas is just an extra touch if you like the sweetness and the flavor. Now I'm going to add some black pepper, fresh ground black pepper. You can do this at the table too if you want. And finally, some salt. Oh, I'm going to add just a touch of salt, but mostly I'm going to add kala namak. Kala namak means black salt. It's actually pink in color. It's not black. So kala namak comes from northwest India and southern Pakistan, and it has a sulfurous flavor. And for people who are used to eggs, it might make them give them some additional hints that this is kind of an egg-like dish. So kala namak. We don't need to buy eggs, and I think one of the other cooks in the kitchen is actually showing us how to mix, I'm not sure if it's going to be banana or flaxseed for baked goods. And there you go. Get a bowl. So this is my scrambled tofu. Easy peasy. No sticking. I'm really happy about that. So I know for sure at home if you use a reasonable quality pan, you shouldn't have problems with sticking. I'm on low medium. Okay? So just so we can pass the baton, I'm going to take a little bit of the tofu to sample it with you. And then while the show goes on, I'll let this cook just a little bit more. But let's see what it tastes like. So here's my scrambled tofu. It's very nice. Quite good. Next, and again, ask questions anytime. At the end, we'll have Q&A. Next, we're going to have another kind of scramble, a cauliflower scramble, and that's being done by my friend Susanna Dickman in Indiana. Take it away, Susanna.
Thanks, Dilla. That tofu scramble looks great. That's one of my family's favorite breakfasts to have on Saturdays and Sundays when we have more time to cook. Hi, everyone. My name is Susanna Dickman, and I'm from Evansville, Indiana. You can follow me on Eat Plants Be Well on my webpage or on Facebook. And also, in January, my husband and I started Eat Meatless Monday Evansville. So check us out on my Facebook page. It'd be great to have you there. All right, so Dillett made that beautiful, delicious tofu scramble, and we are going to make a scramble too, except we are going to have a different star of our scramble, and cauliflower is going to be the star of our scramble this morning, and I'm so excited this afternoon, excuse me. So let me turn on my burner. I always like to kind of preheat my pan to about medium high. And I had it on a little bit before while Dillett was cooking because I wanted it to heat. So I'm going to put my onions in. I don't know if you can hear the sizzle. There is a little bit of sizzle because, as I said, I preheated it. Now, you know, you've seen, if you've watched us a lot before, you know that we don't cook with oil. So I am just going to let my onions sit here for a minute and sizzle and begin to cook. I don't want it to brown and I don't want it to stick. So when I need to, I have a little glass of water. I'm just gonna take and make a splash of water so that it doesn't burn. And I'm starting to smell and see some of the little pieces burning. So I'm just gonna put, I think maybe a tablespoon. Okay, the benefits of this too is you also get a nice facial. So that's a win-win for letting your tomatoes saute without oil. I just want them to get translucent. And I've used a yellow onion today. You can use a red onion, a white onion. Mostly I prefer cooking with red onions because we know, right, the deeper the color, the more antioxidants. So go ahead and choose your onion. Next, I'm going to add some garlic. So this is about a clove, maybe a clove and a half of garlic because I do like garlic. Next, I'm going to let that cook. Now, I don't want my garlic to brown, but you can see I still have some water in my pan, and my onion is starting to get translucent. So now I'm going to add my other vegetables. And just like Dilla did, I'm going to put a little sprinkle of water. The vegetables that you add to the scramble, you can make them, you can add what you like. We like mushrooms, and we know that mushrooms are so good and healthy for you. So this was an organic canned mushroom that I had that I wanted to use up, but most of the time I would use a fresh mushroom. So it's up to you. You know, you can use the can or you can use fresh. Next, I'm going to add a red pepper. You could use green, yellow, orange, any kind of pepper. The key again is adding the fruits and vegetables that are going to give you the most vitamins and minerals for your body that your body needs. The deep red, we know the deeper the color of the vegetable, the more antioxidants it has. So this is, and it looks so pretty. You know, when we get the cauliflower in there, the contrast of the colors. So I'm going to put on my lid and let this steam for a little bit. I want the mushrooms to get cooked, and I want the peppers to get a little soft, and then I'm going to add the star of the show, which is the cauliflower. But I wanted to talk just for a minute about cauliflower because I know we all know that it is a healthy food, right? But I just found out, we know it's a cruciferous vegetable and how that is important to help fight cancer in our body. It's high in fiber. But did you know that cauliflower has it has a little bit of all of the vitamins and minerals that our body needs. So it's just, you know, if you're not adding cauliflower to your diet, you should at least be eating it, I'd say, well, if not every day, 3 or 4 times a week. And we loved the scramble. I love taking cauliflower and just cutting it up in little florets like I did for my scramble. And putting some nutritional yeast, onion powder, garlic powder, and putting it in my air fryer. And oh my gosh, that's when it's like, you know, you think, I just ate a whole head of cauliflower. But you know what? It's okay because it's so good for you. So really, really start introducing, and this scramble is a great way to introduce cauliflower. You're going to see we're going to add turmeric and spices so that it's going to turn yellow, and people won't know that they're eating cauliflower. All right, if you can see, there is a lot of moisture in the mushrooms and the peppers, and I like my peppers, I like them to have a little crunch. So I'm going to go ahead and add my cauliflower. And there were very small heads of cauliflower at my grocery store this week. So, but this is that was one whole head. That's all I got from that head. So I'm gonna go ahead now, and I have about a half a cup of vegetable broth. This is low sodium vegetable broth. And I am going to pour that in. Mix it around a little bit. And then this is going to cook. My florets are not that big. You see, I made them small because one of the options that you can do, if you'd like, is to take a fork or a potato masher, and once the cauliflower is cooked, I'm going to put my lid on because I want it to steam. But once the cauliflower is cooked, if you prefer, you can go ahead and take a fork or a spatula or a potato masher and kind of mash your cauliflower so that it resembles more egg, just like you would do with the tofu scramble. Sometimes I do that, sometimes I don't. It's just your preference, of what you want to do. We're going to let this cook for just a little bit, and then we're going to put in our spices. You notice I haven't put any spices in yet. We're going to add those at the end when our cauliflower is tender and, just the way we like it. So I'm going to let it cook for just a couple minutes. I know, we might not be able to get it all done, but I'll go ahead and show you what it looks like. Here, maybe I can talk about the spices I'm going to put in here. So we're going to put turmeric in here. We know turmeric is so good for anti-inflammation. So, if you have inflammation in your body, turmeric is what you want to eat. And we know that adding black pepper to turmeric helps you absorb the anti-inflammatory properties. The third ingredient in here may be something that is new to you. Let me just take a peek. Oh yeah, there's plenty of liquid in here because again, even my cauliflower is all vegetables have liquid in them. So it's releasing some of those vegetables. But this is called black salt. And if you look at the container, well, it's not black at all. It is pink. But if you open this, it has that sulfur flavor or taste or smell, just like eggs. But it really, it doesn't add a lot of sodium. I've just added a 1/4 teaspoon to this. And that's to give you that sense of, the smell of the eggs. This can certainly be a spice that you leave out if you don't want to. If you leave it out, I might add like a 1/4 teaspoon of salt just to, add that flavor. Sometimes I'll add this, sometimes I won't, but it does add a depth of flavor that I think you might like. So you might consider adding it. And this can be found, I found this here in Evansville. We have a great local Asian store that carries a lot of different types of beans and things and spices, and they're really good prices. So that's something you can look for. It's called black salt powder. I don't think I've seen it in any of my regular type stores, grocery stores, but you should be able to find it. Okay, so our scramble is getting there. I'm going to go ahead and just put my lid there, and I'm going to just smash a little. And as you can see, my cauliflower is not quite done. So I'm going to add my spices though. If you were making this at home, you would go ahead and you could add the spices when the cauliflower is almost ready, when you think it's about a minute left to pull it. So I'm going to add my spices, my black pepper, my turmeric, and my pink salt, and we're going to see magic happen. right? We're gonna see the cauliflower turn yellow, and that's, you know, again, so we get that sense of color. You know, we eat with our eyes, right? So we want to have familiar colors when we're cooking. And the last ingredient I'm going to add is nutritional yeast. And this again just gives it a little cheesy flavor and also adds just a little more flavor to it. You notice we really haven't added that many spices. So let me go ahead and sprinkle that on. I'm going to sprinkle it all around. It also is going to thicken it up a little bit. So there we go. Let me make sure. Oh, I'm just getting the smells of the turmeric and the nutritional yeast. Now, I will let this cook for just a little bit with the lid off now because my cauliflower is tender. Oh, it's a little hot. Not from spices, but from cooking. But it's tender and it just tastes so good. So I'm going to go ahead. You can see there's still quite a bit of liquid in there. So I'm going to go ahead and let it cook a little bit longer to further soften the cauliflower and also to get the liquid out. But I'm going to go ahead and put some on here. We love to serve our tofu scramble and our cauliflower scramble on corn tortillas. You can go ahead and just use some Ezekiel. We like the Ezekiel grain bread or another whole wheat bread that is good. I'm going to put the lid back on while this is finishing. But great. My husband, just like he would with a tofu scramble, he would put this in a wrap and take it for breakfast when he got to work. Peppers are perfectly done. The cauliflower is perfectly done. Again, eat your cauliflower. Remember, it has all of the nutrients and vitamins, a little bit of all of the nutrients and vitamins that our body needs. So make sure cauliflower is on the menu and eat it as a scramble. I put salsa over this, avocado. I love it with refried beans, refried black beans, but just eat a tofu scramble. All right. Thank you for watching. We all really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to watch us. Next up is Jana in Abu Dhabi, and it's all yours. I can't wait to see what you're making.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Susanna, for your introduction and that amazing recipe, which is definitely much healthier than what I'm going to share with everyone today. Okay, so our theme is so many egg alternatives. We're sharing with you recipes which traditionally would have used eggs, but instead we don't have eggs. We've had many such examples in the last 2 years that we've been working together, putting these shows on. For example, one, I think it was Valentine's a couple years ago, I made pink pancakes and there were no eggs in them. But today it's French toast. French toast has, even during my omnivore days, was not a health food, and for sure this recipe isn't one either, so something one could occasionally have and splurge. So here we go. We have all the ingredients, of course, in our recipe booklet online, so you don't have to worry about it, but I can just go through them. My recipe says vanilla bean scraped, which is something I could not find here. Therefore, I went ahead and bought vanilla milk it's almond milk with vanilla flavor, which it works just fine. And then non-dairy milk, cashew butter, maple syrup. I'm lucky to have some from home, from New England, cornstarch, and then cinnamon, and nutmeg, which I love this little gizmo. If you ever find one, grab it. You put whole nutmeg pieces in it, and then you grind it. It works really well. And then a pinch of salt if you use salt. So I have all the ingredients. I put them in immersion blender this time because I made half the recipe. I will be eating it by myself. So immersion blender works fine, and you could even just use a whisk, or if you're making a bigger batch, you can use a blender to really whiz it well. This is the container I use to put the batter. It's nice and flat, and the bread fits perfectly in it. And I have made one to show you how beautiful and brown it gets, just like the French toast we would make in the old days. So I'm gonna warm my pan. I have a non-stick pan, therefore I don't really use the butter either, but I squirt a little oil and wipe it. I don't know, I don't even have to do that, but it just makes me feel better, I think. And then I mix the batter once again, because you never know, it may have settled a little bit, some of the ingredients. Then here's my bread, whole wheat, sourdough. You can use your favorite bread. Preferably choose a whole grain bread, it's better for you. Then you put the bread in, and you let it soak for about a minute. And you can swoosh it with your fingers. Don't feel afraid to get them a little wet and mushy. And take your bread and squish it a little, making sure that the batter is nicely absorbed. And during that time, your pan will be warming up. So when you put it on, it will sizzle nicely and give it that nice brownness that we hope to achieve with our French toast. Yummy, yummy. So here it is. This piece of bread is nicely soaked, and I plop it onto my. I don't know if you can hear it. It's sizzling. Then you just leave it for about you cook it for about 3 minutes on each side. While that's cooking, I can show you what I do. I have some blueberries, and you can also have some, make a nice whipped cream with the plant-based butters that you have. It could be a cashew cream or something else. And here we go. There's the taste test, as always. Adding some berries is always a good idea. I always have some frozen blueberries in my freezer. My husband's going to be sad that he's not at home. This is delicious, and you'd never know that this isn't the original recipe. See, ours has been cooking a bit. It's sizzling again, and that's it. I'll let that cook. This is my recipe for today. I hope you will take the time to make some French toast for your family one of these weekends. It's a wonderful treat to have. Serve it with lots of fruit so you get plenty of fiber to perhaps help with all that fat and sugar that's in this recipe. Before I say goodbye, I'd like to introduce to you my colleague and friend Angelita, who is in Greenville, South Carolina, and she's going to share with you a wonderful recipe using chickpea flour. Bye, everybody. Hope to see you next month, perhaps here in Abu Dhabi, and you never know where we might be. Be good, eat healthy.
Jonna, thank you so much for that French toast. I'm so excited to see something that delicious and really for it to be that simple and good for us. So thank you for that. I cannot wait to try that. Hi, good afternoon. My name is Angelita Alvarez Hughes. I am in Greenville, South Carolina. The name of my company is Earth, Seeds, and Water, and you can reach me on my website at www.earthseedsandwater.com if you have any questions about the recipe that I'm creating today. Or you can also type that question into the chat option and we'll try to answer it as we're going along, or you can save that question till the end when we're doing our Q&A. Again, thank you for being with us on this Saturday. I'm really excited to be part of this show and to share this recipe with you. I've made this many times here at home. The recipe that is in the booklet is just a base, so it's just a basic crepe. You can make it sweet, or you can make it savory, or you can just leave it plain, and then the fillings would change according to what you would like. So with this one, the recipe that's in the booklet is just calling for regular salt, but if you like a little bit of that eggy flavor, you can add some black salt to that, the same amount. Also, as the batter sits, it tends to thicken up, so make sure you have a little bit of extra water just sitting there so you can go ahead and add it to it. All right, so I've already made the spinach and mushroom filling because that does take a little bit of time. So when you're cooking that down, you want to make sure that you do not add more water than what is on the recipe because it's going to give you a very soupy filling. So you let the spinach wilt, put a lid on it and put it down at very low. Once it's wilted, then you're going to add your ½ cup of your plant-based milk, whichever one it is that you prefer. If you don't want any, you can use vegetable stock. And then you're going to add your hummus. And again, you can use any flavored hummus that you'd like. I just used a hummus that I keep here at the house that I just make often. It's just like a staple at home. So it's just plain hummus. To these, as far as the seasonings, you can add anything you want to it as well. If you want to make it a little bit spicy, you can add ½ teaspoon of chipotle powder. That gives it this really wonderful smoky flavor that goes really well with the spinach and the mushrooms. You can add some sun-dried tomatoes to it. You can add some Italian seasonings to it. I would start with ½ teaspoon and then work my way up. The recipe here will make anywhere from 4 to 6 crepes depending on how big you make them and how thick. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So what I have here in my bowl is 1 cup of chickpea flour, and then I've got the salt in here as well. Let me go back. So I've got 1 teaspoon of salt in here. If you're going to use the black sea salt, you're going to use the same amount. And you don't have to use any salt if you don't want to. All right, and so here we're going to add the water as well. And you're just going to keep stirring. I've got a little bit more than what the recipe calls for because it tends to thicken up as it sits. All right, so I'm putting on my little crepe pan so it can go ahead and start heating up. And you're just going to whisk this till you have no lumps. And it's going to look very, very watery. When you're doing that, but don't let that scare you. If you want to add something to this mix, you can do that right now. And just keep whisking away. So chickpea flour is just made from the garbanzo bean or the chickpea, and it's lower in calories, has 0 cholesterol, is gluten-free for anyone who has gluten intolerance. It's also soy-free, of course. It's high in protein. 1 cup of this flour has 21 grams of protein. It has iron and it has vitamin B6 and it has magnesium. So this is a wonderful alternative to eggs. Also, spinach is full of fiber and it's full of protein and calcium, iron, and magnesium. And then the mushrooms decrease the risk of cancer, has vitamin D, it promotes lower cholesterol, and it supports your overall immune system. So see all these wonderful benefits you're getting out of something that you're going to enjoy. All right, so I think we've got it very well mixed. Hold on, let me get my... I use an ice cream scoop. It's a number 12. And I'm trying to figure out where it's written. So it's written right here. So this is equivalent to 1/3 cup. And I'm left-handed, so I kind of do things a little bit backwards. So let me use my right hand. But this is the consistency that you want. You can see it's very watery. If you want it to look closer to the color of an egg, you can add a little bit of turmeric to it. I would start again with about 1/4 of a teaspoon on it. Now I've got my crepe pan going. You don't have to have a crepe pan, just a stainless steel, a non-stick surface works really well. I sprayed it with a little bit of cooking spray. Let it heat up, and now I'm going to take my paper towel and I'm going to clean off the excess. I literally just held it 1, 2, 3. All right, so here we go. You've got to be quick because this cooks really fast. So once it's on there, you're just going to rotate this. You can hear that sizzle. Again, because I'm left-handed, it takes me a little bit longer to switch hands. So I'll probably end up doing it. Let me do the other one the other way. So I have a slotted spatula. This helps me be able to get it out. If you're doing a smaller one, then you might want to use a smaller spatula. This will just help you flip it. So you'll know that it's ready when you see all the little bubbles on the top, and I'll show you what that's going to look like. There's still a little bit of fragments of flour in here, but just keep stirring it. This will be perfect for your kids to help with as well. All right, here we go. This one needs to cook a little bit on that side. It doesn't take long to cook. Just be careful so you won't scratch the surface. If you have one of these that has a little rubber tip, that'll be even better. But as long as you're careful, you should be fine. Okay, now we take it and we flip it over. And this is what they look like. It only takes about, depending on your stove, I've got a gas stove. When I cook on an induction burner, it takes just a little bit longer. When I cook on this gas stove, it's a lot faster. And my lowest setting is still pretty high. So you'll see where, oh my goodness, that sounds good. All right, so this is done, and you're just gonna slide it on the plate. Take that same paper towel, wipe it again. Mix. And I'm just doing it, eyeing it, because like I said, being left-handed doesn't make it any easier on me. And we're just gonna swirl it around. Take your time. No need to rush. and then it'll start bubbling. And so this is how we're gonna do it. You'll, again, like I said, you'll end up with like 4 to 6 of these. They store really well in the fridge. I like to keep a few of them ready. And so when they're done, I just layer one on top of the other, and then I cover it with plastic because I use the same piece of like some saran wrap type stuff over and over again because nothing's really on it. If you want to roll these up, you can. If you want to layer your dip, your filling on the top and then layer the next one and do it until you're completely done, then you can serve it like a little pie. Just depends on what you would like. And if you want to make these sweet, you can add 2 tablespoons of maple syrup to it, but remember to reduce the liquid so you won't have it really, really soupy. All right, so this one's done. Flip it over. And there's the second one. See how pretty that is? So I'm going to continue cooking these while this one's finishing up. I made some already earlier. And 2 is plenty, but here is how they look. There's 4 of them there. And then what you would do is just add a little bit more of your topping, of your filling, excuse me, as a topping. And then I just shredded up some more spinach to put on the top. And that is ready. All right. We'll do one more. Looks like I'm going to end up getting 4 out of this one because of the size of the pan. But you don't have to make them as big as this pan. You can make them whatever size you want. And there we go. So this is, excuse me while I get a fork, I'm sorry. So this is what they look like. And then that's what the inside looks like. Isn't that delicious? Anyway, I hope you guys give these a try. Thank you so much again for being with us today. And now I'm going to hand it over to Mark, who is going to be making a chickpea omelet. And he always does an amazing job. So take it, Mark, and thanks again.
And Helita, that looks fantastic. Love crepes. I just don't make them enough, so I'm going to have to give that one a shot. Hi, everybody. Mark Cirkvenik, Let's Eat Great Food. You can find me on the web at let'seatgreat.com or on Facebook at Let's Eat Great Food. Love to have you join me on one of the tours where my wife Lori and I are chefs. If you go to Veg Johnson Journeys and look for the no oil, whole food, plant-based tours, those are the ones that we chef on. So we have a couple of tours coming up this year that aren't sold out yet. So go ahead and check us out at vegjohnsonjourneys.com, or you can go to my website at let'seatgreat.com. Right in the middle of the page, you'll see Let's Eat Great Food on tour with Veg Johnson Journeys, and check out some of the tours. So today we're going to make an omelet. Yes, a no egg omelet, and we're going to reproduce some of the aroma and the taste with a specific seasoning called black salt. So here I have my ingredients today, folks. What we have is some paprika, turmeric, onion powder, garlic powder, nutritional yeast, as well as right in the middle there is some chickpea flour. And that's going to give kind of the overall texture and the bulk to our dish. We're going to put a little bit of tangy Dijon mustard in it, as well as this is black salt. It looks pink, but it's called black salt. You can find that at your Indian, South Asian markets. And, if you ask for it, make sure you ask for black salt, even though it is pink. And we use that in egg dishes because it has a higher sulfur content and gives that little bit of a eggy aroma to the dish. Now, if you're salt-free, go ahead and leave that out, and you'll still have a really, really good omelet. So what I've already done is I've taken all of those ingredients, and you've got the recipe, and I put all those ingredients in a jar, and then we're also going to add. I'm going to tilt my camera down here a little bit. We're also going to add some milk to that. It's 3/4 of a cup of milk. So let's see if I could not make a mess here. All right, we're going to put those 3/4 of a cup of milk in this little container here, and this is just a leftover salsa bottle, I should say, and we're just going to go ahead and shake that up. And you want to shake that up really good. I've kind of prepped this, so some of the stuff stuck at the bottom there a little bit. But we're just going to go ahead and shake that up. And the nice thing about this is you can now take a look at it, and it's a little thick. So I'm going to add a little bit more water, a little bit more milk. I'm probably putting about another 1/2 cup. I like my batter just a little thinner. The recipe calls for 3/4 of a cup. Boy, I already smell that egginess from that black salt. I'm just going to keep shaking this guy up really good. And the nice thing about this is you can leave this in this jar, and I've left the batter in the jar for like a couple, 3 weeks, and it's absolutely fine because there's really nothing to spoil in here. So just shake that up really good. I've still got some little bits in the bottle, so I'll just keep shaking. And then all you do, oh, that's a nice consistency, is I'm going to pour this right in the pan, just like an omelet. I'm just going to pour enough, probably about, a 1/4 of a cup or so. I'm going to tilt my camera down. I'm not as fancy as Dilip. I don't have a videographer or anything like that. So I'm just going to let this cook up, and we're just going to leave this cook until it gets nice and firm. So just kind of keep this going. Now the question really becomes, folks, what do you want to put into this? Well, we could put a lot of different things. We could put any kind of vegetables in this. We could put some vegan cheese in this, or our own homemade vegan cheese, a cheese sauce. Sometimes I like to just have this omelet plain and then put all my veggies on top of that. We could put, tomatoes, onions. You want to stuff it with mushrooms. The recipe that I have has onions and crushed garlic inside of it, and then you could dress it with mushrooms and soy sauce and a medium tomato chopped up, whatever you'd really like. So let's go ahead and kind of take a look at what's going on here now. And there's the omelet just about done. This is of course, a no-stick pan with no oil. I'm going to flip that over, and as you can see, it looks just like an omelet, right? So I'm going to go ahead and plate this up really quick. Get one of my plates, and go ahead and put this right on my plate. And there's our wonderful omelet. I'm going to give this a little taste, and let me walk over to my forks over here. One of the things I always talk about with my students is make sure you organize your kitchen so everything's nice and close. My forks are way over there. That's kind of where we set our table from, our forks and our knives. And then I keep everything else close around my kitchen, around the stove, and my spices are kind of right behind where this camera's at, right next to the stove. So let me give this a little bit of a taste. I'm going to turn my gas off so I don't start a fire. And give this a little bit of a taste. You saw how fast that was. It was a matter of like a minute or two. And it's got that nice eggy taste. I'm just going to keep eating, guys. So with that, I'm going to keep eating. And, again, find me on let'seatgreat.com or on Facebook at Let's Eat Great Food. I'm going to turn it over to Tammy. Tammy, take it away.
Wow, that looked amazing. And hello, everyone. My name is Tammy Robertson. I'm a registered nurse and president and founder of Cooking on the Veg Health and Wellness. I am based here in sunny 80-degree warm Sarasota, Southwest Florida, and I have a wonderful recipe to share with you all today. It is vegan egg salad, but of course without the eggs. And we're going to go ahead and get started. So our main ingredient is tofu, and we also have, as a part of our ingredients, one of the first ingredients is vegan mayonnaise. And I made this from scratch. You can buy it commercially, but it tends to be a lot higher in fat. PCRM has a wonderful recipe for homemade vegan mayo that involves silken tofu, a little bit of a pinch of salt, onion powder, garlic powder, a pinch of sugar, some Dijon mustard, and some apple cider vinegar. Blitz that up in your high-speed food processor, and there you go. Wonderful homemade vegan mayonnaise. We also have some Dijon mustard, and we have some nutritional yeast. I was able to find a special type of nutritional yeast. This is nutritional yeast with dill and vinegar, so that'll work out really well in this recipe. I also have some apple cider vinegar. And then our seasonings, I've got some garlic powder, some dried turmeric. I've got some paprika. You can use smoked if you like that smoky flavor, or regular. I've got a little pinch of cayenne pepper and some freshly ground black pepper. And one of the stars of the show is kala namak, and it's otherwise known as black salt. Now, this isn't actually black in color despite its name. I'll show you what this looks like. It's kind of pink in color, a very pale pink. And you can find this very easily in many grocery stores, especially in Indian grocers, and you can find it online if you're unable to find it in your local grocers. And then of course we have our ingredients as well that will go inside as a part of our eggless egg salad. We've got celery here that has been cubed and sliced in very small slices. We've also got some scallions or green onions that have been finely chopped. We also have this dill. This is amazing, wonderful dill that has been finely chopped. I took the stems off and finely chopped our dill. And then we also have here some chives, and I'll come show you what these look like. These look amazing. Look at that. Dill and chives. Yes. Okay. So we are going to go ahead and get started. Our main star of this recipe is, of course, tofu. So I have here some high protein tofu that is vacuum packed, not a lot of water in this one. And I also have some firm tofu. So I found out that firm tofu kind of works best. If you like to have the different consistencies, you can use a super firm and a water pack. Just depends on which kind that you like, but for today's recipe, you can use firm or medium firm are great options. And of course, this one's packed in water. So I'm gonna go ahead and get all this water off. And the ones that are packed in water tend to be more soft than the tofu that is vacuum sealed. So a good way to get some of that excess water out, because of course you don't want a lot of water in your recipe, is to take a paper towel. If you are like me in our house, we eat tofu all the time. So we have two different types of tofu presses. We've got a tofu press that looks like this, where you put the tofu in. It's got holes in there. You put it here. You fasten it with these little elastic fasteners, and it will press the tofu down. There's also this type of a tofu press that you just screw and then it lowers and squeezes the tofu and gets all that excess water out. But for today's recipe, I'm just going to use plain old paper towel, and you don't have to really worry too much about making sure that the tofu keeps its shape, because we are going to be crumbling our tofu. And so this one that I'm opening now has a lot less water in it and doesn't need to be pressed nearly as much. So it's been one of my main educational pieces as a nurse to try to dispel some of the myths that are surrounded by tofu. So I'm just patting this dry, and then we will go ahead and start with our recipe. So we're going to combine all of our kind of non-topping ingredients in here. So as I said, tofu is a soy product, and many epidemiological studies have shown that tofu and soy reduces the risk of many different types of cancers, including prostate, breast, and colon cancers. And actually they found that with regards to women's health, that women who average 1 cup of soy milk or about half a cup of tofu on a daily basis had about a 30% less risk of developing breast cancer. Isn't that amazing? 30% less risk of developing breast cancer. It's best to start early in childhood, especially during when girls are going through the adolescent phase for that maximum protection. So I just put in our lovely dill, or our lovely Dijon. Now I'm going to put in the rest of our ingredients. There was a women's health study as well, found that those who consumed the most soy products actually cut their risk of cancer mortality in half. I'm just going to say that one more time. Those who were found to eat the most soy products cut their risk of cancer recurrence and mortality in half. And I'm talking about for women who have already had breast cancer specifically. So if you've already had breast cancer, do not be afraid of consuming soy, because you can decrease your risk of mortality and death and recurrence in half, which is wonderful. Women who avoid soy products do not get any advantage at all. All right. And now we're going to put all of our seasonings in. And most of these protections come from the phytoestrogens that are contained in the soybean. So that's why it's so, that is why it is so protective. Okay, got all of our ingredients in here. Now I'm just going to mix this all together, and then I'll show you what that looks like. In the meantime, I always get lots of questions about soy and fertility, like, ooh, soy decreases your fertility. Actually, the science says that is not true. There is no hindrance upon reproduction with the consumption of soy. Adults who had been, even with adults who had been fed soy infant formula when they were children, did not have any adverse effects when it comes to the ability to their reproduction, which is excellent. And I always get the question about men. What about men and their male hormones, testosterone? Doesn't soy decrease that? Absolutely not. There is neither soy products nor isoflavone supplements have any negative effect on testosterone levels in men. As a matter of fact, men who do consume soy resulted in a 26% reduction in prostate cancer risk, which is amazing. All right, I'm going to come show you what this looks like. That's what we're looking at here when everything is mixed together. And now we're gonna crumble our tofu. And also, soy has been proven to help decrease fibroids in women. The more soy women ate, the less likely they were to need a hysterectomy, suggesting that fibroids were less frequent in those women who were consuming lots of soy. Now with this crumbling, you can cut this if you like to into small cubes, but I just kind of like the consistency a little bit better when it is crumbled in here. And a lot of this fibroids has to do with lignans, and so that is the reason why soy is protective for that. And also the moist soy products that women ate, according to another study, the less likely they were to have inflammation in the body. And of course, inflammation we know is a pathway to chronic disease, specifically cancers, type 2 diabetes, and cardiovascular disease. And so soy products appear to reduce bad cholesterol as well, which is another plus plus. And it may also reduce the risk of osteoporosis related hip fractures. So again, all good news for soy consumption. All right, now I'm gonna use the firm tofu block here, the extra firm. And this is organic, non-GMO soy is what I always recommend. And we're just gonna keep on crumbling here. And soy products do tend to be higher in protein, and sometimes manufacturers have kind of taken advantage of this and taken soy isolates and turned them into meat substitutes. So it's always best to go with the more simple soy products like tempeh, tofu, edamame, miso. Those are the best choices. All right, now we are all done crumbling. This is great for the kids too. So if the kiddos want to get in here and crumble their tofu, I know how kids like to really get their hands in here. All right. Okay, so once we have our tofu all crumbled up, we're gonna go ahead and add some of our toppings. And then this recipe is very forgiving, so you can add as much as you want of these toppings. Add as much as you want, just kind of go for it. Okay, this is looking great. And that turmeric, of course, that's in here. Also, when turmeric is combined with black pepper, as it is in a lot of Indian cuisine, it is such a nutrition powerhouse and anti-inflammatory. That's why you always want to consume turmeric with black pepper, because it boosts that anti-inflammation property by like tenfold. It's just amazing. All right, I'm gonna add in my dill and our chives. Give it a pop of green color in here. And a little bit more celery. This is looking good. Also that kala namak, that black salt, such that eggy flavor. So if you don't care for that, the best thing to do is you can just eliminate it and use just regular salt in its place. All right. I'm gonna go ahead and finish everything off here. And then one of the best things about this recipe is not only can you kind of use the recipe as a guide, but also this is so very versatile. You can use this recipe in, for example, you can use it as a topper on a baked potato. You can even scoop out of little potatoes and make smoky little devils and put this inside to make, instead of deviled eggs, you can do deviled potatoes with this filling. You can also add things like bell pepper of any color. You can actually stuff this bell pepper with this inside as well, and that makes a great lunch. But for you today, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put this on a bed of lettuce and then show you the final product there. All right, and this is some just regular salad greens that I have here. All right, I'm just gonna kind of make a little well here for it, and then we're gonna go ahead and add some of our Eggless Egg Salad on top. And again, the sky's the limit with this. You can even make boats out of romaine and put it inside. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and show you all what this looks like, our finished product. Okay. All right, and here we are. Vegan egg salad. Doesn't that look amazing? So nutritious and delicious. And I hope that you enjoyed this cooking prep today. And I would like to hand it over to Karen, who's going to show us her quiche recipe. Can't wait. Take it away, Karen.
Thanks, Tammy. That looks great. And hello, I am Karen Osborne in Austin, Texas, myfoodfitnessandfun.com. And today I'm going to show you a quiche. And it's a really hearty dish. It's yummy for breakfast, lunch, dinner, or brunch. And I'm going to just talk about the ingredients real quick, and then I'll show you how fast it comes together. So I'm using a lot of the same ingredients that have been used already, probably all of the egg substitutes except for tofu. So I am going to use garbanzo bean flour, chickpea flour, and as it was said, it's high in protein. It's also higher in fiber than whole wheat flour. So I'm using it for the texture that it's going to help provide the quiche. So when you're replacing eggs, you are going to replace the texture and you're going to replace the flavor. So this helps when it cooks up. It's like something that had eggs in it and then you baked it. And you can also use it for an egg substitute. Just mix it with some water and it can be a binder in whatever you're making. I'm also going to use cauliflower that was talked about, good cruciferous vegetable. And this is also going to help with the texture of the quiche to give it kind of that baked eggy texture. Using flax seeds, and I'm going to grind them real quick. I like to grind them. They're a good source of omega-3 fatty acids, but when you if you grind them and then just have them exposed to air for a long time, the fats get rancid so easily. So I'd like to grind them right before I use them and then put them in the dish, covering them with liquid, and the fats don't oxidize. All right, so then I have some nutritional yeast for our cheesy flavor substitution. And I'm going to use some baking powder, which I make with, you can buy it, but I just do 2 parts baking soda and 2 parts baking powder. 1 part baking soda, 2 parts cream of tartar. So it's an acid and a base, and when it combines with the liquid, it reacts. I'm going to do a little more, little baking soda to help that reaction. And then what I want to do is get everything in the oven while we're having that reaction, so it kind of rises. Okay, so the thing that takes the longest is caramelizing your onions. This is a whole onion. I just cut it in half and then sliced it into crescents. And then I heated a skillet. I'm going to preheat my oven real quick. But I heated the skillet, and then I put the onions on the hot skillet and turned it down. So that keeps it from sticking if you heat the skillet first. And then whenever it starts sticking, I put water, just a little tablespoon or two at a time to keep it from sticking. Keep it moving, like check it every once in a while. And it took about 35 minutes to caramelize the onions. So I didn't want you to have to sit here and watch me do that. So I went ahead and did that. I also, okay, so then I moved the onions into a bowl. And in that same skillet, I didn't wash it out or anything. I just put the mushrooms. I bought a box of sliced mushrooms. How easy is that? I put the mushrooms and the spinach and just put the lid on and let the water cook out. And the water is going to pick up any of the onion bits that were stuck to the bottom of the skillet. Then after the water started coming out, I left the lid off and then let the water cook out because I want all of these vegetables kind of dry. I don't want them to dilute my quiche. So then I'm going to just put the onions back in with the spinach and the mushrooms. And the spinach, you don't have to use spinach. You can use any green. You can use kale. You could use chard, even bok choy, anything you like. All right, so we're just, I would do this right over the heat as soon as I finished cooking the mushrooms. All right, so we have our vegetable mixture. I'm going to put that aside. And I have lined it, I just have a piece of parchment paper on a pie pan. Now, I'm going to put all the dry ingredients in a bowl. Start with the chickpea flour. And I'm going to use a little salt, but you don't have to use salt. And then for the eggy flavor, so the kalanama, which everybody's mentioned, it's you don't use it really to salt your food. You're using it just to flavor it. That's why I use a little bit of Himalayan pink salt. I'm just going to use a little, like a quarter teaspoon, because we don't want the quiche to taste like eggs, but it just is going to give it a unique flavor. And it does smell a little bit like eggs, and it smells a whole lot more like eggs once it hits the liquid. I'm going to put in my nutritional yeast for that cheesy flavor. I've got some thyme. You could season it with whatever you like. And I'm going to put in, let's see, the baking powder and baking soda so that we can have that reaction, and let it rise like you would if you had eggs in it. So baking powder, a little bit of baking soda. And then I'm going to grind the flax seeds really quick. You could do it in like a magic bullet or a coffee grinder, spice grinder. I have this little, it's a Try Best, a little blender. Just going to do it really quick. This will help bind it. And I'm going to mix it up. Then I'm going to add the cauliflower. So for the cauliflower, I just took a head of cauliflower, took the florets and put it in the food processor and just pulsed it until it was rice-like. Just little like kernels of cauliflower. So right now it is hard and raw. So, but once it cooks, it's going to help give it this eggy texture. All right, so now we want to work a little bit fast because we want to get this in while we're having this reaction. I'm going to put the water in and just stir it until it's kind of combined. So it's not going to be smooth with that cauliflower in there. And then real quick, I'm going to put the vegetables in, the mushrooms and the onions, spinach. So the black salt is really pink, like it was mentioned before. But the reason they call it black salt is it's dried, it's kiln dried, and so when it comes out of the kiln, the outside is black, like it's charred. And here we go. So they call it black salt. And we're just going to mix this really quick. Just get everything combined. And I'm going to grab my pie plate with the parchment paper. And just pour it right into the center. Don't want to waste any of that good stuff. And then I'm just going to press it into the pan. And then I'm going to put it in the oven and bake it at 350 degrees for about 45 minutes. So it's going to rise a little bit, just a little. If you notice, like you check it at 45 minutes and you notice that the center is still sunken, you might need about 5 more minutes. But it's going to be like a nice golden brown on the top. I'm just going to put it in the oven. And here's one I made just before, where you can see it just it rises a little bit. It's a nice golden brown and it slices really nice. I would say if you're going to eat it cold, use a little bit less salt because it tastes a little more salty if you eat it cold than if you're eating it warm. But anyway, hope you'll try it and let us know how you like it. I saw a comment come through when someone else was cooking about having to find some of that black salt. Maybe you'll win it at the end of this presentation because that's one of the things that we're giving away. So anyway, enjoy, and I'm going to turn you over to Carolyn May Strickland in Montgomery, Alabama for some Southwestern fajita casserole.
Hi, Karen. Thanks. That looks great.
Thank you.
I can't wait to try it. We need to have a potluck so we can all get together and eat each other's creations. That would be really fun. So like Karen said, I'm Carolyn Strickland. I'm in Montgomery, Alabama. You can find me on Strickland's and Friends. It's a YouTube channel that I do with my husband, who is a board certified lifestyle medicine specialist here in Montgomery, Alabama. And some of the toppings you can use on what I'm making today, you can find the recipes for them on our YouTube channel. So, all right. So I am making a fajita breakfast casserole. And again, I'm using tofu like so many other people have done today. It seems like we've had kind of a theme of tofu or cauliflower to replace eggs, but they're really great egg replacers. And I'm so glad Tammy talked so much about how good tofu is for you. There's such a myth about the health benefits of soy. It really, really is good for you. So, and tofu makes such a nice egg replacer because the texture is really good for it. And cauliflower makes another alternative, really great alternative for people who can't have soy, might be allergic to it. So, all right, so we'll get started making our fajita breakfast casserole. So when you think fajita and you think vegetable fajitas, you probably think peppers and onions and, you know, vegetables that have been sauteed. So I've already taken 1 green bell pepper and 1 red bell pepper and 1 whole onion. You could use a white onion, a yellow onion, a sweet onion, a red onion, whatever your favorite is that you would put in a fajita. And I've already roasted all of that along with some potatoes. So it's 1 large or 2 small Yukon Gold or whatever kind of potato you have. It doesn't really matter. But so just roast them at 375 for about, I don't know, 15 to 18 minutes until the potatoes are tender. You want to be able to put a toothpick in them or a fork, and they're fork tender. And then they're ready, and then set them aside. And then now we're making the egg filling, again, using tofu, like I said, and I have a block of firm tofu. I always use organic tofu. And you don't actually have to press it and get all the liquid out. I think Dilip mentioned that at first. You don't really need to do that in recipes where it's going to stay moist anyway. It should be fine to just put the entire block in, but I will probably break it up a little bit to get it down into the blender. And then, so that's 1 big block of firm. I tried this recipe a few weeks ago with silken just to see what it would taste like or what the texture would be like. And it really wasn't quite right. It was very soft. It was delicious, but it was very soft and the texture wasn't quite there. So you could use firm or even extra firm if you really want to, but I think firm is just perfect. And then a 1/2 cup of water. See, this is the reason we didn't really need to drain the tofu. We're adding liquid anyway. And we have a tablespoon of, and this is tapioca starch. You could also use arrowroot powder. You could use potato starch. You could use cornstarch. So any kind of starch that will help thicken and hold everything together. It's really kind of a binder. And then we have a teaspoon of taco seasoning. You can make your own taco seasoning. You could buy taco seasoning, whatever your favorite is. We have turmeric. So it is just a 1/2 teaspoon of turmeric because turmeric is so very good for you. 1/4 teaspoon of ground mustard, because there's something about mustard in the tofu and in this recipe that really helps give it kind of an eggy flavor, more of a depth of flavor, really. And of course we have kala namak, which everybody's been using today. And I have this kind from the Spice Lab. We are also giving away kala namak today. In the Q&A, you have to ask a question during the Q&A to be able to win. But we're giving away Spice Lab kala namak. So I'm putting in a 1/4 teaspoon of that. And then just a 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder, which is going to help kind of hold everything together and also help the dish rise a little bit as it's cooking and stay fluffy. So, okay. And 2 tablespoons of nutritional yeast, which gives it more of a depth of flavor and some added B vitamins. And it's just delicious. I love nutritional yeast in my food. It's so good. And that's it. So we've added tofu, water, the starch. I used tapioca starch, but any kind of starch, taco seasoning, turmeric, kala namak, baking powder, ground mustard, nutritional yeast, and then some fresh cracked black pepper. Because whenever you're using turmeric, like Tammy said, you always want to use black pepper with that, because there's something in the black pepper that helps your body use the compounds in the turmeric more effectively. So that's right. We need to add, when you're having anything with turmeric, add some black pepper. All right, so we're going to whirl that up. And then stop and scrape it down a few times because you want to get all that yummy stuff mixed up in here. This is basically making like a batter for the casserole. All right, big whirl again. All right, that looks pretty well mixed. So here comes the fun part. So we have that batter nice and mixed. And then I'm going to take all of those vegetables that I already roasted. So potatoes and peppers and onions. You could, if you want to, add mushrooms to this, maybe broccoli. That would be really good too. Just decrease the amount of some of the other things because you don't want to overwhelm the batter with too many vegetables. So see if I can get this all pulled up. And of course I have it on a parchment lined pan. Oops, I'm spilling it on the counter. All right, so I'm putting it all into a bowl. There we go. Pull the parchment back out. And then pick up all the pieces that I dropped on the counter. And then we also have black beans. It's just a half a can of black beans that I've already rinsed and drained. And I have about 1.5 cups, so 1 to 2 cups of chopped fresh spinach. You could use baby kale instead. That would work just as well. And then we're going to pour the batter over the top and mix it all up. And I hope my bowl is big enough. Okay, just want to get all of it out of there because we're going to need all of it to coat all of those vegetables. Okay, it's just about all of it. And then I'm going to use a big flat spoon to kind of stir it all up and get all the vegetables coated with the batter. So with the vegetables, when I was roasting them, I tossed them with a little bit of vegetable broth to kind of moisten them, and then tossed them with taco seasoning and a little bit of salt and pepper. More pepper than salt. And they roasted until they were tender and cooked all the way through. So you can see that that is getting really well coated. And like I said, you could add maybe some sauteed mushrooms or throw some mushrooms on the roasting pan too, or broccoli or cauliflower. Seems to be a theme today, cauliflower. All right, and then I have a pan already prepared with parchment paper. So it's an 8x8 baking pan. You could also use a rectangular shaped pan. If it's a bigger pan than this, it won't cook for as long because it'll be thinner. But this is a nice thick casserole. And it's perfect for breakfast because it's very eggy. You could also eat it for dinner. So I brought it to our potluck. We do a monthly potluck here called Veg Out Montgomery. And we're on Facebook as Veg Out Montgomery, VEGOUT. And I brought this to test it out on all our friends who come to Veg Out and I frequently use them as my guinea pigs. So thank you to my Veg Out friends. Press it all the way into the corners. Okay, that looks pretty good. And once you've got it all even and level in here, it's a very colorful dish, which, you know, like Tammy said, we eat with our eyes, right? So we want our foods to be beautiful and colorful. Okay, that looks pretty good. And then you're going to put it in the oven for about 40 minutes at 375 degrees. And I already have one that is finished. So I'll show you what that looks like. So that just came out. Look how beautiful and golden brown. And it smells incredible. It's too bad we don't have smell-o-vision because this smells so good while it's been cooking in there. It's been making me very hungry. All right, so I'm going to cut a piece for my husband who is right here. And you could, if you want to, put some in a tortilla and make it into a breakfast burrito. I'll just cut one piece to see how this looks. Oh my goodness. Yep, nice and thick. Looks beautiful. Let's see if I can get up under there. He's getting himself a fork. I know he wants to try it right now. Oh, okay. Losing a piece over here. Okay. Hang on. Let's see. I'll take the fork for just a second. I want to taste it first. Let's see how this is. Okay. Really good. Thank you. Very good. Very good.
Your food is good.
It is. Well, it is. It's really good. So you could top it maybe with some sliced avocado, maybe some vegan sour cream, or maybe a vegan cheese sauce, like a nacho cheese sauce. That would be really, really good. On our YouTube channel, I have a recipe for the sour cream that we make here all the time, and also for a cheese sauce. So both of those would be great. Maybe top it with some microgreens for a little added nutrient boost, or wrap it up, like I said, in a tortilla and make a breakfast burrito out of it. It is really, really hearty and filling, nice and thick, just what you want from a breakfast casserole. So, and I think you could actually probably make this the night before and leave this in the refrigerator covered, and then put it in the oven the next morning. If you're having some sort of, brunch get together or something, you could make it ahead and then put it in the refrigerator. So let us know if you have questions. Be sure to ask a question during the Q&A so you can win one of our 2 really cool prizes we're giving away today. Like I said, one of them is the Kalanomok, and it's a bag of Kalanomok, but same brand as this, and also a bag of flaxseed, because you can use ground flaxseed to replace eggs when baking. So when I make cookies, or sometimes making a cake, I'll use ground flaxseed in place of an egg. If I find a recipe that's like an old family recipe that calls for an egg, I just replace it with flaxseed, and it works just as well. And instead of raising your cholesterol like eggs do, it lowers your cholesterol, which is really cool. So please join us for the Q&A, ask a question, and you can get one of those great prizes. And I'm going to send us back over to Dilip and to, I think Karen's joining us too for Q&A.
And Susanna as well. So thank you.
Okay. Hey, Susanna.
Thank you, Carolyn, and everybody for a wonderful show. Great presentations, and I think I'd like to make every single thing that was presented today. So yeah, so there was a comment from Krista. Flax is great for baking. It sure is. So we should spend some time talking about some of these ingredients. And from this point forward, Karen, I think, is going to keep track of all the questions that come in. So please ask questions, and then we'll draw to give the prizes away. So I wanted to ask an ingredient question really of you, Susanna. So first of all, thank you for giving me that idea. I've cooked with cauliflower and vegetables, but never kind of what you did, where it was a scramble.
Right.
And I'd love to try that sometime. But I wanted to ask you about the combination, because I like mixing different flavors, but to me, nutritional yeast and turmeric don't go together. So I wanted you to talk about that, because clearly I'm missing something. So tell us more what that flavor profile is like. I can often kind of imagine, but for me, that's kind of a strange combination.
Yeah. Oh, no, Dilip. I think at first I thought it might not be an ideal marriage for, just to describe it. But it just, I think the nutritional yeast, first of all, in terms of aesthetics, it deepens the color of the turmeric, I feel like. And it just adds, I love turmeric, but I can only handle about a quarter teaspoon in my scramble or in my other, dishes I make with it. Otherwise, I think it gets to taste a little bitter. So the nutritional yeast, I felt, kind of dampens that bitterness, and just together, the cheesy flavor to me is just great. So I suggest that you try it. I really like the combination of both.
I will. That's interesting. I wouldn't have chosen that, but now that you did it,
Mhm.
it looks good. I'll try that. And
So
by
did
the way,
I.
quick comment, Rochelle, welcome. I don't recognize your name, so if you're new, welcome to our show, but maybe you're regular, so we're glad you're watching. So turn that into a question. You can be in the running, but I wanted to say something about chickpea tofu. Is I love tofu and I love chickpeas, but for me, chickpea tofu doesn't work. I recently bought it. My wife enjoys tempeh, but she has problems digesting tofu, so I bought some chickpea tofu, and my daughter and I didn't like it. My wife said it's okay, and I wasn't crazy about that. Um, okay, and then I wanted to ask you, Karen, about chickpea flour. It seems to be something that more and more people are using, and I know one reason people use chickpea flour is for allergies. They don't have to worry about wheat, for example. Can you talk about some of the merits of chickpea flour in general?
Sure, it is gluten free, as was mentioned. Um, you can make things like you can make a pancake or something without even a lot of well, obviously no egg, not even any baking powder or baking soda, anything like that. It's just got that quality where it does rise. Um, and it's got more protein and more fiber than whole wheat flour. It's got all the nutrition of garbanzo beans. So, yeah, it's very versatile. You can use it for an egg replacer. Um,
How about from a culinary perspective? Why would you choose besides the nutrition, but what recommends it?
um,
If you were cooking for somebody who wasn't gluten-free, would you choose chickpea flour under certain
well, it
circumstances?
depends on what I'd be making. So if I wanted something like what we're doing, it's giving that kind of. It's like a good egg substitute for what I'm doing. Um,
Does it give a chickpea taste?
no, you don't want to eat it raw. It doesn't taste good raw. But if you cook it, it is bland. I mean, it just takes on the flavor of whatever you're making.
And a question came in, and go ahead and write down Krista's name. Krista Campanero has asked that, and you've already answered, chickpea flour doesn't give a chickpea taste. Okay, good. Carolyn, I wanted to ask you a little bit. I was thinking during your presentation, maybe we should do a show, So Many Phytochemicals. We often talk about phytochemicals. And I was thinking today, as I put a comment about phytochemicals, is maybe some of our people watching might say chemical sounds bad. And of course, phytochemicals aren't bad. Our biochemistry is all about chemicals, right? So when I see with my eyes things with lots of color, so in Food for Life, in the Physicians Committee Food for Life program, we have a handout called the power plate and sorry, not the power plate, but the rainbow. What's it called, Carolyn? There's a rainbow handout.
Nutrition
Yeah,
rainbow. The nutrition rainbow.
nutrition rainbow. And so when I saw your roasted
Mhm.
vegetables, I was thinking, look at all those phytochemicals. So
Mhm.
I wanted.
Right.
What do you think of the idea of doing a show? So many phytochemicals, we can really focus on color. We did have a show once around Valentine's where we talked about so many beautiful foods, but
Right.
that, and then
So many
I wanted to ask.
colorful foods.
Many colorful foods, yeah. I wanted to ask you about the oven. You were talking about baking. More and more people are getting convection ovens, air
Mhm.
fryers. Air frying, as
Yeah,
far as I can tell, is nothing but high-powered convection. So convection is
true.
where you add a fan to your oven and things cook more uniformly and faster. So
Right.
for your dish, would convection would it give it kind of a crusty top? Would it not be a good thing? Do you have any comments on
Um,
convection
so this
baking?
is a convection oven. So I did bake it in a convection oven. And I mean it's not really a crusty top. It's kind of firm on the top, but I don't know. I guess I haven't baked in a regular oven in so long. I'm not sure, but because the fan just automatically comes on in mine, so I don't really know. It does have a really firm top. Um, It's very
My,
firm
my,
all the way through, which is good. But
my experience is if you're using a cookbook that calls for, say, 350 degrees for 45 minutes and you have a convection oven, start paying attention 10, 15 minutes before it's done, or drop the temperature by 5 or 10 degrees.
well, I think it depends on your oven because mine automatically regulates that. So if I put in 350 convection bake, it just knows to decrease the temperature. It just does it by itself. But I think if you are if you have a regular oven, not a convection oven, and something says, convection bake at this temperature, you might want to put it a little bit higher. So, yeah,
So
mine just
Mindy's
does
also
that.
commenting that her oven has a convection setting and it figures it out, so you don't have to adjust the temperature.
Right.
Mindy,
Right.
turn that
Most
into a question.
new ones do.
Mindy, turn that into a question. You can be in the running for our prizes. So there's a bunch of questions that have come in. So Linda, let's add Linda's name to the drawing. Do any of you make your own chickpea flour? No, I haven't, but I think Mark has. And it sounds like Susanna, maybe you want to share something there.
Yeah, no, I just buy chickpeas and blend them in my Vitamix and make flour. However, I'm one of those people. I've made like a quiche type thing, and the chickpea flour just doesn't. I don't like the flavor of it. So for me, I would say everybody's got to try it once and see if they like it or not. The quiche that I made, it was great. It was good coming out of the oven, but as it sat and had to be reheated, I just felt like the chickpea flavor or some flavor came by too strong. But yeah, I make my own all the time.
You
Just
know
for
what chickpea flour is really good for is in Indian cooking to make pakoras. So you can take
Mm-hmm.
vegetables and you can dredge it with the chickpea flour. And then
cool.
traditionally it's deep fried and we don't deep fry, but you can air fry it.
Bacon.
So I've
Air
done that.
fry.
I've used chickpea flour for that.
Cool.
Did anybody else want to share anything about chickpea flour? Okay, let's go to some more questions and lots of good questions. So Carolyn, I know your mom had a question. So
Did she?
Mrs. May, yeah.
Was it, can she have some of this tomorrow when she comes over?
Oh, she's coming over. Okay.
Yes.
So
Yes. So
Mrs.
yes,
May
Mom, you
asks,
can have them.
where can I buy black salt colonymics? Carolyn, maybe you can have some ready for her so she can take it home with her.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, I got this on Amazon because, unless you have an Indian grocery store nearby, it's probably going to be hard to find. You don't find it at regular grocery stores most of
That's
the time,
right.
at least not in Montgomery, Alabama. And we do have an Indian grocery store here, so I need to run over and check and see if they have it.
Yeah,
But
if you have an Indian
you can
grocery
buy it on
store,
Amazon.
where we live, there are my daughter's here. Anuragini, how many Indian grocery stores do we have in the area? Would you say dozens? There's dozens of Indian grocery
Oh my.
stores.
We have
And
one. It's Montgomery. What do you want?
just within like 4 miles of my house, I can count like 3.
Wow.
And
Wow.
we don't even live where there's a big Indian population. If you go to Cary, North Carolina, where there's a huge Indian population, just in Cary, there's got to be 10 or more Indian grocery stores. But if you can go to an Indian grocery store, you can get a bag, a small bag of colonymic for, I think, $1.29, and a really
Wow.
big one for like $2.50 or something like that. Is really
Wow.
cheap. So
Yeah.
you can get colonymic certainly on Amazon.com or probably other online places. But if there's an Indian grocery store anywhere nearby, this would be a good excuse to visit. And
Right.
just there's so many great spices and things at an Indian store. It would be worth your while to go to an Indian store just to buy the spice dibba. They have these like round metal spice containers. And those are surprisingly cheap. I think like a small one is something like $6 or $8, and then a
Wow.
bigger one is like 15 or 14, and it's great to organize your spices. So so try to visit an Indian store. That might help.
Yeah. I'll give you some tomorrow, Mom.
Question came in from Krista. How long would that fajita casserole last in the refrigerator?
Probably at least 4 or 5 days. I mean, it never lasts very long around here because we just eat it. But I mean, it only makes this much. It's just an 8x8 pan, so we tend to just eat it. I would go with probably 4 or 5 days. and then
Bonnie
just reheat
Martin
it in
and
the microwave.
Bonnie Martin has a question, but first, before we take her question, Bonnie, I saw your comment earlier that you were 80% vegan, and you said now you've become 100%, and you're also avoiding sugar and salt and refined food. So congratulations, and I hope the show has been of some use to you and some benefit in making that transition. And I'm glad to hear that you're feeling really good for doing that. So yay, yippee. So Bonnie, your question is, I had a question about the flax seeds that I've been wondering about. I put them on everything for omega-3. Do you need to make sure they're ground up? Doesn't matter. I have whole 2. So Karen, do you want to take that?
Or if you don't grind them in, you're not going to really absorb any nutrients from them. They're just going to go right through you the way they went in.
Exactly.
You will see them when you go to the bathroom again.
Exactly. You will see them again, and they didn't do anything for you.
So
yeah.
you probably get some residual fiber, or maybe no. You get no benefit if you.
Yeah, but one thing you can do is soak them and then soak them for I think at least an hour. Maybe it's 4 hours. That's good. But then soak them and then add some ground to it and seasonings, and then spread it on a dehydrator tray. Dehydrate it and make crackers, and then you're able to crunch them more than if you just bit raw flax seeds. So you can break them down.
Rochelle has a comment that she makes a no oil hash brown and mushrooms in her scramble. Linda has a question. So Linda Pittman, I guess you're already in the running, but when you make the vegan mayo, how long does it last in the refrigerator? And I can answer that. Depends on how you make the mayonnaise. So if you're using nuts as your base, nuts are high-fat foods, but if they're refrigerated, if that's your base, it should last for weeks, actually. If you're using nutritional yeast and say soy milk, I would not let that stick around for as long because the soy milk would start spoiling after maybe a week. So it depends on what your ingredients are, but safely a week should be fine, and maybe a couple weeks. So let's see what the next question is. Okay, Kathy Sabo. Let's add her to the list. No. Does tofu have to be cooked to be safe to eat? No. So let me mention some of you who have been shopping for a couple decades. Did you want to say something, Sweetie? Yeah. Who've been shopping for a couple decades. Do you remember you used to be able to buy tofu? There was like these big bins, and you'd have tongs. And that wasn't necessarily the most healthy or safe way to have tofu. If it were me, I remember buying tofu that way. If it were me and I ever went to an old-fashioned co-op and that's the only way they had tofu, I probably would be more comfortable cooking it. But nowadays, when you get packaged tofu, it's perfectly good eaten raw. Some people don't like raw tofu. They say it has no flavor and they prefer to cook it, have other flavors. I love it raw. I love it cooked. So no, you don't have to cook it.
Well, and Tammy used hers raw in her eggless egg salad dish. That was, chopped up, just cubed tofu. So you can do that. It's already cooked when you get it. So
yeah, and then Bonnie had asked a question about non-stick pans, and I saw a comment just recently. So I don't use Teflon. When I was growing up, I did use Teflon. I love Teflon because it doesn't stick. But Teflon is dangerous. If you buy Teflon, you'll see there's a sticker on it, and it says stop using it if you ever have any scratches, because then you can actually ingest this poisonous Teflon, and it outgasses, and it can affect very young children, and it can affect birds. So I was reading a story yesterday. A friend of mine had an apartment, and she rented out the bottom floor. And in her rental agreement, she says you cannot use Teflon because she has birds. And she was asking, what can I do? Because my renter now is using Teflon and it's affecting the birds. So in terms of nonstick pans, I don't recommend Teflon. I don't think any of us would recommend Teflon. If you have an old Teflon pan, then just I would not use it. But I like something that's non-reactive. I love Salad Master pans. They're expensive, but they're kind of the Rolls Royce of pans. So Salad Master pans are great. There's some ceramic pans that are really heavy. Le Creuset, those are really good. And then cast iron is a good choice too. Cast iron will last forever. There is some evidence. I don't. So Neil Barnard presented this a few years ago. I don't know if there's been more evidence that too much use of cast iron can contribute to brain degeneration. And back when he presented it to us, the take home was, we're not sure yet, but it's wise not to use your cast iron like all the time. So I use cast iron 2-3 times a week, maybe 4 times, something like that. But cast iron is a good choice. I just wouldn't use it all the time. Does anybody want to add to that about nonstick pans? And there's some controversy about nonstick pans. My wife sent me an article a few days ago. I don't wash my nonstick pans with soap. When I first buy it, I've only bought like 3 pans because they last forever. The first time I'll wash it carefully with soap, and then I season it with oil, and I wipe the oil off. And then every month or so, I put a little bit of oil and season it again, but I don't wash it with soap and water. But there are people who say it's okay to do that. So does anybody else want to share anything about nonstick pans, about cast iron, about washing, not washing, or nonstick pans in general? No? Okay. Comment from Mindy. And again, Mindy, turn it into a question and you can be in the drawing. One reason those with cholesterol issues like to use egg whites, not yolks, is due to the saturated fat in the yolks, but you're still getting cholesterol in any part of the egg. So one cool thing about being egg-free is cholesterol only comes from animal foods. Cholesterol is actually important for building cell walls, but we make enough. And when we consume cholesterol, we need to consume 0 cholesterol. When we consume cholesterol, it gets into the bloodstream and can cause blocking of arteries, for example. So I recommend 0 eggs.
Right. There
So
actually
Mindy,
is one plant that produces cholesterol, but most people don't eat it. So algae.
I didn't know
Algae.
that. Is
Mm-hmm.
that so? Algae produces cholesterol? I had no
Yep.
idea. And Paula, thank you for watching. Kathy has a question. Draining tofu is not necessary. So you should always, it's been sitting in water, get rid of the water. Now, if you're cooking something which is a moist food, you don't need to drain it. I would still squeeze it just to get the water it's been sitting in out. But if you're going to be doing some sort of sauteing or baking, then pressing the tofu is useful. And I love Tammy's tofu presses. I tend to try to minimize my prep time, and so I'll do a quick squeeze with my hands and then I'll say I'm done. But sometimes I'll take time. I do have a tofu press. I use it half a dozen times a year. I really don't use it very much, and I'll let the tofu sit for 15, 20 minutes. Does anybody else want to share your perspective on draining tofu?
I mean, like you said, if it's in the dish you made and the dish I made, it's moist anyway, and so I was adding water back into the recipe, so I don't really drain it. I get rid of the water that it's been sitting in, and I squeeze it out a little bit, but I don't press it. But when I'm making something like air fried tofu cubes to throw into a stir fry or something, and I air fry them first with a little bit of cornstarch or something on the outside to get them crispy. I will press them then. And the way I do it, I don't have a fancy tofu press. I might have one somewhere, but I never use it because it's just so much easier to put it, like slice it into, slabs and put it on kitchen towels, like
Tammy
tea
did, I think.
towels,
Yeah.
not regular kitchen towels that have lint on them, but like tea or baking pastry towels, basically. And I'll put it on a few layers of that and then put something heavy on top of it with more towels. And it's amazing how much liquid comes out of that when you, even after you feel like you've pressed it and dried it, and then you squeeze the towel out, there's so much water comes out of it. You can really press a lot of liquid out. You can press even more out if you freeze the tofu first, and then
That's a good
really
trick.
get a lot of liquid out. Yeah.
So yeah, what you can do when you buy your tofu, your water packed tofu, when you come home, put it in the freezer, don't open it up, and then remove it from the let it freeze, and then let it defrost, and it changes the texture. It adds a little more flavor.
My mom sent me a recipe that actually is to make like big chunks of tofu that are sort of like chicken nugget kind of replacers. She found a recipe where you drain it first, then you freeze it, and then thaw it and squeeze even more liquid out. But for some reason it was drained first, and it works just as well if you go ahead and drain it and then tear it into big chunks and season it and roast it in the oven. It comes out like big chunks of meat, I guess, if you want to put it that way, as a meat replacer. You could use it in stews or whatever, but
So,
it's pretty
we have
good.
a question from Colleen, and Colleen, I think you may be a new viewer, so welcome to our show, and sorry that you had problems with the link, but I hope you got the link to our recipes. So Colleen asks, and Colleen, if you go back before the show, we've put the link there as well. She asked a question of Karen. Karen, how long does it take to get the onions without oil caramelized?
About 30 or 35 minutes, because you want to just cook them low and slow.
And let's add Colleen's name to the drawing, Karen, please. Kathy asks a question: can the liquid from tofu be used as aquafaba? No, it's chickpeas, but not the tofu. Bet you can do some experimentation, but I'd be reluctant to do that because what the liquid that's left behind is really just kind of may cause gas. I don't think you're going to get a lot of nutrients. Strictly speaking, you're probably getting some nutrients, and I'm just guessing, but tofu is chock full of nutrients. And so getting a marginal bit more with all the water it's been sitting in is not something I think I would do. So if you or anybody else decides to experiment and try, maybe saving it and trying whipping it, I don't think anything would happen, but do let us know if you do.
Well,
I'm
an
not sure.
aquafaba is just the liquid from a can of chickpeas. So it's part of Kathy's question. What is it? So it's just a liquid from a can of chickpeas, and it just literally means bean water. So it sounds like it's fabulous water, but it's not. It's bean water.
It may work from soaking soybeans. That may
Maybe.
work. I don't know.
Maybe.
Krista, good to see you on the show again. And you had a question for Carolyn. How long does it last in the fridge? I think we've already answered that, right?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's add Krista's name to the drawing. Rochelle has a good question. Have you heard of black cumin? And we talked about it last time. There's been a lot of talk. Michael Greger has talked about it, that it ramps up the nutrition even more so than regular cumin, and it has a more pronounced flavor. So yeah, so Nutrition Facts. Nutrition Facts is an excellent website. Michael Greger, evidence-based nutrition, outstanding. So yeah, does anybody else want to say anything about black cumin? Okay, lots of great questions. Welcome back, Lee. Nice to see you. So Karen, let's add Lee's name to the drawing. I usually grind my flaxseed that I eat daily. I grind enough for 2 or 3 days and store it in the freezer. Does putting in the freezer keep the fat from growing rancid? Yeah, you want to eat the ground flax as soon as possible after using it because you will lose the, it could go rancid. So that sounds like a good compromise. I mean, if you ideally can grind it just before each meal that you're using it in, that'd be better. But freezing it for a few days is good. Does anybody else want to add
I keep
anything?
mine in the freezer all the time. I have
Yeah.
Yep, I've got it in the freezer.
And you keep it for more than 2 or 3 days.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I would say a couple weeks, don't you guys think?
Probably months. It's a deep
Okay.
freeze.
Okay.
Yeah, should be fine.
Okay. And then welcome Conscious Eating Consulting. What a great name. I hope we're providing some resources that might be of use to you. So what brand of nonstick pans, like for crepes or omelet, are safest, least toxic? And I mentioned Salad Master and Le Creuset. Susanna, did you want to share anything about some of the cookware you like?
Well, I was using the Scan Pan nonstick, which is something that Dr. McDougall, you can search him and he's recommended. But I got 2 of the La Creuset enameled cast iron pans for Christmas, and I love them. I, don't cook with oil. I have made crepe-like. I made a recipe for omelets using yellow dull moonbeams and no stick, just really great. They're a bit expensive, and they're heavy, so I have a small one and a bigger one, but I imagine they're going to last forever. So I was able to splurge, but the Scan Pan is not as expensive, and they are nice too. So you might want to check those out, and you can Google Dr. McDougall and see what he has to say about those.
And I want to echo that, is I do think that cookware is a good place to put money. I recommend buying things that will last and spending a little bit more money getting a higher quality cookware. I wanted to have a shout out. So Brenda is watching. Thank you, Brenda, for watching. And thanks for the wonderful work you do every month. I want to first reflect on what she has to say. We weren't sure. So Brenda is my favorite nutritionist and has written so many books. So whole flax seeds add a lot of bulk to the stool, which is kind of what we were guessing. I wanted to mention I need to write a review, but she has her newest book out called Plant Powered Protein. And as always, her books look outstanding. The thing I love about, first of all, the thing I love most about Brenda is just she's such a nice person. She's the nicest person you can imagine. But that aside, the thing I love about Brenda's work is it's so strongly evidence-based. I know her well enough that if she finds studies that say being plant-based isn't good for you, she'll tell you. I mean, she also is very focused on ethics of not hurting animals, but she's very strongly based on evidence, and her material is outstanding. She has so much good research. But the other thing is that her books have lots of recipes, and lately in her appendix, she's actually been going into her kitchen and taking pictures of dishes she's been making. So thank you so much, Brenda, and thanks for sharing that comment about the whole flax seeds. Here's a question from Sandy Miller. Good to see you again, Sandy. And let's add Sandy's name to the drawing. Sorry if this question has already been asked. Does the black salt have the same amount of sodium? And I think I looked this up. And Brenda, if you're watching and you want to share your input, please do. Um, does it have the same? I think it's a little bit less sodium than regular salt. Does anybody know for sure? I remember looking it up. I think it's a little bit less.
Yeah, my bottle doesn't say. It just says ingredients, salt. So I would assume it has about the same amount, but I don't know. It's a good question.
Question from Mindy. How much of a temperature adjustment to make for a convection setting? And I didn't want to blow off the question, Sandy. So Carolyn, can you, if we don't answer during the show, would you mind getting a definitive answer and then we can post it on the Facebook page,
Okay.
perhaps? Okay.
Okay.
Colin Numick. That'd be a good general comment to put. Colin Numick has come up a lot. Let's put a little bit about the nutrition of it if we could. So Mindy, your question: how much of a temperature adjustment do you make for convection? You have to know your oven. Each oven's different, and even each individual oven from a manufacturer may be different. A particular model.
Philip?
Yeah, go on, Susanna.
So I was just going to say, because I have a convection oven like Carolyn's, that when I have it on the convection bake, and I've looked it up, it's about 25 degrees less than, so if you're cooking at 375, if I set my convection at 375, it'll drop down automatically to 350. So it's about 25 degrees less with convection that you should.
That sounds
cook
about
at.
right. At 25 degrees. Yeah. Lee mentioned, I think, Colin Numick she's found at a large grocery store. And then Bonnie's been a great benefit. Oh, I'm so glad that eating plant-based is helping you. Do you have to ground chia seeds? This is a question from Rochelle. I think she's already on the list, but let's make sure if she isn't that she is. Do you have to grind chia seeds? Who would like to take that?
You should. I mean, recently, that's something Dr. Greger's been talking about recently, that it turns out the nutrients, what we get out of them, the omega-3 fatty acids, are more bioavailable if you grind them than trying to eat them whole. Kind of like flax seeds, whole ones are more likely to just go right through you. So grinding them still would work the same, even in a chia pudding or something like that. It might not have those little lumps that some people really like, but it's still going to thicken things. It's just going to be more bioavailable if you grind it.
You have more surface area to volume ratio.
Exactly.
And Conscious Eating Consulting is our good friend Susan Francis, right, Susanna? So let's make a plug. Susanna and I did an immersion, and in this summer, Carolyn and I are going to do an immersion. So you'll get to meet her, Carolyn.
Oh, cool.
She's the most awesome. She should be a Food for Life instructor, I think. She's great. She's a great cook, very knowledgeable about nutrition, and just the friendliest and most resourceful person. So I'm so glad you're watching, Susan. Let's take your question. Have you used the quiche filling in a pie shell?
Mine? It's not really necessary. You could, but it's kind of with the flour in there, it makes its own kind of crust. So it's a crustless quiche.
Then there's a question. Thanks for all these wonderful questions. Let's add Diane's name to the drawing. Diane Garber. Has anyone made a quick custard? And by the way, if you ask a question, then stick around in another few minutes. We'll do the drawing, and you have to be present when we do the drawing. And we'll ask you to email Karen@somanycooks.com. You could email me, Dilip@somanycooks.com, but Karen's the one who really needs to get your information, and we'll need your address so we can mail something. And by the way, Brenda Davis does have a new book, Plant Power Protein. We should probably put that, Karen, as in our drawing for next time. I think it'd be good to give Brenda's book. So Diane Garber, has anyone used a quick custard cream sauce for a moussaka in place of an eggy custard? I usually use tofu as the base. I haven't, but I bet it would come out great. And I would maybe use the silken tofu for this. Does anybody have any comments on a moussaka? I seem to remember, Carolyn, you've made a moussaka, haven't you?
I've at home, but not on the show. So,
right.
But I would probably go with silken as well. Yeah.
Okay. And then a comment from Rochelle. I know Dr. Barnard says that unless you use cast iron once a month, get rid of it. Okay, I wasn't aware Dr. Barnard had a stronger statement than that. Last I remember, and I clearly have missed it, was if you're using it, use it a couple times a week. So I missed that, Rochelle. Thanks for pointing that out. Okay. So Dr. Barnard, according to Rochelle Wilder says in autopsies that showed copper, aluminum, and iron, he says stainless. And I agree, stainless is the best. Stainless is non-reactive. Ceramic is great too. You want a non-reactive pan. I like my cast iron because it's easy. For cleaning, but I use it less than I used to. Okay. Yep, that's what Dr. Barnard has said in the past as well.
I just posted a comment on, at least on the Facebook link, about black salt and the comparison to regular salt.
Mindy, dietary cholesterol does not have much of an effect on dietary cholesterol, but saturated fat does impact. My point is to eat egg whites, not yolks. If concerned about cholesterol, I won't eat eggs at all. Okay, I recommend not eating eggs at all. The fat and it'd be interesting to see where that information point about the dietary cholesterol not having an effect on. I think you mean that if you eat egg whites, it doesn't make a big impact on cholesterol in your body, and that's not my understanding. So if you have some information, some references, please share that. But I don't recommend eggs. Does anybody else want to talk about that at all? Mindy's comment. And by the way, one more reason not to use eggs is apparently they're really expensive.
Right.
It always seemed weird to me, right? So this thing goes through the chicken's insides and comes out, and doesn't sound appealing to me. And to me, it doesn't seem like a food. Now, I do want to say that there are probably we're privileged. We have an abundance of food. But if you're living someplace where there really are no protein sources, you don't have legumes, you don't have peanuts, you don't have anything like that, but you have some chickens running around and you're eating their eggs, why wouldn't you eat the eggs if you have no other source of protein, right? So there may be some context where eating eggs could be appropriate, but no context that I travel or that I've been to. And Colleen, great. I'm so glad you found our show. I'd be interested to know how you found our show. So if you can, post that. And you can go to somanycooks.com/shows and see all of our past shows and all of the recipe documents there as well. Yeah, so Rochelle is saying animal products are not good for your health. Yep. Okay.
I just found
Okay.
about
Let's
black-
move on from that. Yeah, sorry, go on, Karen.
the black salt has less sodium than regular, and it is less salty. Like you don't want to use it for salt.
Right.
Mindy, I do want to say that you were asking about animal products. There's more and more evidence that going towards zero animal products is good for you. As far as I know, there hasn't been a study that has shown that that zero animal products is optimal. But all the studies I know say the less you eat, and for me, less. Why not go to zero? And some of us don't eat animal products for additional reasons. When you eat food that goes through different levels, if you don't eat directly from plants, it takes so much energy each level of redirection you have. And so from an environmental point of view, if we all were plant-based, if we were all vegan, it would very quickly, strongly help with global warming and environmental reasons. Some of us don't eat animal products because we don't want to we don't want to hurt animals and take their products. But you'll have to do your own research, and we're sharing evidence-based information about the health, nutrition of plant-based eating. Question came up from Mindy. What's the difference between flax versus hemp seeds for, I think you mean functional cooking maybe? So would somebody like to talk about hemp seeds, flax seeds? Karen, you'd be a good one to take that.
The flax seeds, it depends on what you want to use them for, but they do both have omega-3s. Flax has more omega-3s, but the flax get gelatinous, and the hemp seeds don't. You can make a nice creamy dressing or something with the hemp seeds.
I love the taste of hemp seeds. And correct me, anybody, including Brenda, if you're on, I don't think you have to grind the hemp seeds. I eat hemp seeds plain. They're so, you can chew them, and so they get fractionated. So I never grind hemp seeds. I love them. They're nice. My daughter loves them on salads. I often sprinkle them, and I put an extra serving on hers. So Mrs. May, I've been keeping my ground flaxseed in the fridge. Yeah, so I would recommend freezing it. And tomorrow your daughter can tell you more about that. Okay, good. Thanks, Brenda. So the sodium of Colonomics is a little bit less. Okay. Uh, okay. Let's see more questions. So here's something that Carolyn posted, and this is going to be probably take too long for you to copy it down. But Carolyn, did you put this on the Facebook page so people can follow the link? And it's from the Times of India.
Yeah.
There's a lot of Colonomic used in Indian cooking. Okay. Why is it good to use cast iron at least once a month? So that's not what we said. So if you look at the evidence so far, so what Dr. Barnard has said, I think, is that there is some evidence that cast iron can contribute to brain degeneration. And last we had a discussion of it as Food for Life instructors. My recollection a few years ago was don't use it all the time. And others people are saying that he has actually recommended using it very rarely. So we're not saying use it at least once a month, but we're saying that I use it once or twice, 3 times a week, but there is some evidence that it may cause some problems with brain issues. So I think this is still evolving. So if anybody has some definitive information, more definitive information, as far as I know, there are no fully definitive studies yet on that topic. Let's see. Okay. Does anybody speak Spanish? So Uliska Bodnar, I don't speak. Is it Spanish or is it Romanian? I think this is Romanian.
That is not Spanish.
Okay. Question from Mindy: aren't chia seeds gelatinous? They can be, and that'd be one thing that's good to make a pudding out of them.
Right.
Okay, I think, are there more questions? Because I'd like to do the drawing. So thanks everybody who's been asking questions. I'll pause just for a moment, see if there's any. Okay. Yeah, so there is some controversy here, right? So, for example, lactating women, the advice used to be to use cast iron. So let's leave this as an open question. Last I heard, Karen, you might be more in the know about this than I about cast iron pans. What do you think of the advice that I had heard from programs we've had that don't use it all the time, but a couple times a week? What advice do you go with? What evidence have you seen, Karen?
Well, if you need iron, yes, because if you don't need iron, then you really don't want to use that, because you will get some iron into your food from it.
So Mindy asks about why not check your own body nutrition. What I would say is when we buy food to eat, we want to eat the food and not the pan. A small counter example might be if you need extra iron, you want to get a little bit of that from the pan. So I don't think that choice of pan depends on diet. I like to eat the food itself, and I want it to be prepared so I get as much of the whole nutrients as I can from the food. Okay, let's do a drawing then. Karen, how many entrants do we have? Go ahead and read the names.
You have 13.
Wow, excellent.
Krista Campanero, Linda Pittman, Judy May, Bonnie Martin, Kathy Sabo, Colleen Fleming, Rochelle Wilder, Lee Hay, Conscious Eating Consulting, Sandy Miller.
And that's Susan Francis.
Susan, Sandy Miller, Diane Garber, Mindy Schlager, and Nancy Scott.
Excellent. Okay, so I'm going to do a drawing, and I'll do it the way I always do. I'm going to do a test one. So I'm going to draw a number from 1 to 13. I'm using random.org. I'm a math teacher, so I can tell you you can't really generate a purely random number on the computer. This is a pseudo-random number. This doesn't count, but I'm going to say 1 to 13. I got the number 8. So if this were really true, then the 8th number, who is the 8th person?
Lee Hay.
So Lee, you would have won. And let's give away the flaxseed first. How's that sound? Okay. So flax, so let's draw again. And the other rule is you can't win twice. So if I draw 3, the third person wins, and I draw 3 again, we'll draw one more time. So here goes. The winner of the flaxseed is number 8. Is that what I drew a second ago?
Yes.
So Lee, you win. So congratulations, Lee. Lee, can you acknowledge that you are here and that you will send an email to Karen? And I'll go ahead and post this. Let's see. I'll post it everywhere. So if you win, please email Karen at somanycooks.com. Okay. Thanks, Rochelle. That's great. Oh, sorry. There's that. Thanks, Rochelle. I need to look at this. So, of course, we adore Dr. Barnard. He's so he was one of the first to really dive into all this great evidence about plant-based nutrition. So I look forward to looking at that discussion by Dr. Barnard. Okay, Lee, wonderful. So please send a note. And Karen, so Lee has won the flax. Now let's do the colonomic. Okay. So the drawing for the colonomic. If we draw 8 again, we'll roll again. The number that we get this time is 10. So who is number 10?
Sandy Miller.
Sandy, can you acknowledge that you're here? So congratulations, Sandy Miller, for the colonomic, and to Lee Hay for the flaxseed. Yay, Sandy, excellent. So Sandy, will you please email Karen at somanycooks.com? Don't post your address here. We don't want to put this in a public forum, but go ahead and send it to Karen, and she will get those sent to you through Amazon. You should get them in a few days. So let's start to wrap up. I wanted to reflect a little bit about our upcoming shows. First of all, those of you who are new, please join us. We're on every month. So Many Cooks in the Kitchen. There's about 20 of us in any one month. There's usually about anywhere from 7 to a dozen of us. We decided to do the egg show. We were going to do a brunch show, and then eggs have been in the news so much about the price of eggs. So we said, none of us use any eggs. Let's talk about what we do. And so we did our egg show, So Many Egg Alternatives. All of our shows are 100% vegan, and they're whole food plant-based with limited fat. And I recommend you look up the Food for Life classes we teach. These are Physicians Committee Food for Life classes, fflclasses.org, and you'll find hopefully some classes near where you live, also some online classes. These are, I just feel so privileged to be part of the team to be teaching these classes, and all of us are Food for Life instructors, and there's a small group of Food for Life instructors that do these monthly shows. So we did the egg show instead of the brunch show. We were going to do the brunch show next time, but we've been thinking a lot about the terrible destruction that's been going on in Turkey and Syria. And it really comes home to me because I teach, I use the kitchen of a Turkish cultural center, and I teach math at a Turkish cultural center. I'll be there tomorrow, so I'm very connected. And so the Sancur Center, sancur.org, they have people on the ground who are donating funds. And so we want people to remember this terrible natural disaster. And so we decided to punctuate, have the egg show, and then wait a month for the brunch show. The show next month is called So Many Middle Eastern Foods. And I love Middle Eastern foods. Middle Eastern foods often are served in mezes, small platters, so you can make a whole variety of foods. Thanks, Sandy. And so we're going to do that to help us keep remembering about our friends in Turkey and Syria, and remembering that we need to reach out to help. And then we're going to do the brunch show later the following month. The kids in the kitchen in their next show, which is going to be April, are going to do a brunch show. Okay. And then Krista's asking that you guys won, your husband won the Vegan Journal magazine. I think it comes out 5 times a year.
I think it's
so quarterly. So Karen, you sent the note to Vegan Journal, right?
Yeah, you got one.
Okay, you should have gotten one. Oh yeah, you got one. Okay, yeah. So so you're probably on track. It's like every 3 months or something like that. Yeah, I love Middle Eastern food. Does anybody want to share what you're making for the next few classes, for the next few shows, for the Middle Eastern show or for the brunch? I know I'm going to be making a very simple fruited oatmeal for the brunch show, and I'm trying to figure out, I think for the Middle Eastern one, I make this really nice red pepper dip, and it's called mumara, and it's really, really good. That's probably what I'm going to be making.
I think I'm making a deconstructed baba ganoush bowl with a lemon tahini dressing. I think. I'm going to work on that.
So far, I think I have I'm going to make some mocktails for the brunch, and then falafel, and probably a tahini sauce for the Middle Eastern Turkish. So
Sounds good.
You know what's it? Sorry, go on, Karen.
I haven't decided yet.
Okay.
Oh,
You know what's
for
interesting?
the brunch one I'm doing, sorry, go ahead.
No, go on.
I was going to say for the brunch one, I'm going to do a sheet pan pancake, one big pancake. So how to make pancakes for a crowd, make them in a sheet pan and bake them all at once and then cut it up in slices. So sheet pan pancake.
You know, I wanted to mention something. There's all these wonderful dips in Middle Eastern food, but there's also more and more dips readily available in the supermarket. So, for example, now Kite Hill, which makes I think it's all vegan. They make an almond milk-based product line, including cream cheese. And watch the fat; it's going to be higher in fat. But they make it tzatziki sauce, right? So it's a Greek. How do you pronounce it? Tziki, and it's a delicious sauce, and it's not that hard. I make homemade. Sorry.
Tzatziki.
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 I routinely make homemade yogurt, soy yogurt, and I could make my own sauce because I'd mix in some shredded cucumber and all, but it's available and it's often on sale. So there's all these wonderful vegan dips. We recommend restricting yourself to 10% fat calories. That's what we recommend in the Food for Life program. There are other credible, wonderful folks, Brenda Davis, others, who recommend that you can go a little bit higher. But whatever the limit you seek, you want to limit how much fat you have. And so when you get foods like some of these sauces, just use them in smaller quantities. They're really nice to add flavor, but be careful about using too much.
Okay.
Do any of you guys want to share any last comments before we close out the show? Susanna, you're in Evansville, Indiana, right?
Yes.
I added your city. I just wanted to make
Yes.
sure I was right about that. You've been on the news a lot in your local market.
I have the Ange Humphrey is the host of our 11 o'clock kind of, it's a show that talks about what's going on in the community. And she knows she can call me. Oftentimes she calls me the day before or the morning of and says, hey, can you make something? So I think this last time I just made collard wrapped spring rolls and just put hummus and raw cabbage and cucumber and pepper, and I used a tahini sauce that I often use for dressing. So you can just YouTube me or Google me, Susanna Dickman, and it'll come up. I've been doing it for a number. Gosh, I think my first appearance was in 2016 or 15. So she's a great host.
And we sometimes post you on our Facebook page, So Many Cooks page. We've had a couple of your appearances. All right, Karen or Carolyn, any final comments?
Just have fun with it.
No, just yep. Play with your food.
Exactly. Awesome.
What are you making for your mom tomorrow, Carolyn?
Oh, she's having some of this because I have a big concert I'm singing in tomorrow, and so when we get back from church, we're gonna have to have leftovers because I got to get out the door to sing at the museum tomorrow. So,
if you didn't know that, Carolyn is our official singer for our theme song. She wrote the theme song. It's a lovely song. So, and then the kids kind of they sang it over her, which is pretty neat. I have to ask, Carolyn, what are those orangish things behind you?
oh, of course, there's some triple cross.
They look really good. I'm down to my last
and some
two.
others. And some other mandarins, but there's some triple cross back there too.
I'm headed out soon to get some more, another few cases.
Please, I need more. More.
Thanks,
Philip,
everybody.
I'm actually going to showcase. I've processed a couple, about 4 of them, and because my husband made a mocktail with using the juice from one, and I know they won't last until our show, so I'm going to highlight the triple cross in one of my mocktails.
Nice.
So
Maybe you can make some and freeze it till the next show.
Yes, that's what I'm doing. I'm going to freeze some, so I can't wait.
Excellent. That's very nice. So thanks, Kathy, for your comments. Thanks, everybody, for your wonderful comments. We enjoy seeing you every month. So look forward to seeing you for our next show, So Many Middle Eastern Foods. I've been teaching Middle Eastern cooking for many years, so I'm really looking forward to the show. I love Middle Eastern food. At some points in my life, I've called it my favorite food, but I love it. So we will see you next time. Thanks for watching, and keep sending questions in. You can reach any of us by email, Karen at SoManyCooks.com, Carolyn at SoManyCooks.com, any of us, our first name at SoManyCooks.com. Take care and see you guys next time.
Bye. Thanks for watching.
Thanks.
So many cooks in the kitchen, so many recipes to share. So many cooks in the kitchen. with meals for you to prepare. We've got fruits and grains, veggies and beans, more healthy food than you've ever seen. So many cooks in the kitchen, plant-based meals to prepare. So many cooks in the kitchen, with ideas we're happy to share.